We love some movie characters, and sometimes the best way to get into the characters we love most is to dig deep into their motive, their calling, and their sense of self, and talk about what they really, really want. This is movie typing, where we select, engage, and unveil the intentions and drive of the greatest characters on film. My name is Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado. With me is TJ Wilson, coffee guru, lover of theology, and personality typing expert.
Hello.
And we're joined by film instructor, director, the great Steve Morris. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you for having me. I had such a great time in our first conversation. It was, as soon as you sent the topic, it was like, oh, I'm ready to go on this one. Let's do it. So I'm very excited to be back.
All three of us are in that camp, which I got a chance to listen to that first episode just this morning. Last time we jumped into the character of Erik, also known as Magneto from the X-Men universe, and his foil Charles Xavier. But we're not just talking comic book characters. We talked about the weight of trauma. We talked about moral ambiguity. We talked about ends versus the means, and justice versus revenge, and nonviolence and sacrifice. We talked tribalism and our common humanity. We talked about certainty and humility, and we certainly solved all the world's problems if only the folks would listen. But we're back for round two now. This discussion is obviously going to give us a chance to talk about even more, I'm sure. But before we jump into this, we're jumping into the second of the films, looking at Magneto and Charles Xavier's relationship in the X-Men prequels, which is Days of Future Past. Well, I suppose we're going to look at all the rest of the films. I shouldn't say that. This discussion is going to give us a chance to talk about a whole host of other things, and
hopefully more than one film. Did we really only get through one film the last time?
We did.
Perfect. Yeah,
well,
that's on brand.
That's why the Cinephiles has become 3-4 parts to get through a movie. So it seems perfectly familiar to me.
There is something about just if it's a catalyst for conversation, and the conversation just keeps going and going and going, all the better. So,
yep.
But I'm excited for this one. Friends, dear listeners, if this kind of discussion isn't for you, we have 500 hours of other stuff that you can dive into. But just know, I assume it's the case that now we have permission to push even harder with our opinions. And so that's where we're going. We're talking heroism and villainy and the imagery in the X-Men films.
Yeah. I mean, if they came back for part two, then they got to be okay with what we've already laid down. So
we'll jump into this film. Anything we're saying before we get into Days of Future Past?
I've been thinking about this conversation since we had the first episode, and that I really think having models who are not polar opposites, but ones who have things in common and both seeking justice in their own way, having those models in your brain, I think allows you to look at your own actions in a clearer way. And so I think it's really, there's a reason that so much of philosophy is carried in stories, because it's through stories that we actually can feel the complexity of the issue. Just having an abstraction isn't so helpful. Having Magneto and Professor X is.
Yeah.
It seems to me that one of the things these movies succeed at, where a lot of comic book movies fail, is that they make the war about ideas, and it's not just, can you be more clever with your superpowers in the end? Are you able to think through the laws of science in this one little instance that defeats the villain? That's not what's going on here. There's a real battle, and the battle has nothing to do with how big your biceps are. It's about the ideas at play, and that's what moves me most here. It moves me most in The Dark Knight. It moves me most in a handful of the great movies, and some like Fantastic Four is coming to my mind recently as ones that just, I'm never going to remember that movie because it wasn't about anything of that sort. And
I'll tell you, a weird analogy popped into my mind as you were speaking, which is every single Rocky movie centers on a fight. And I would say, in general, the Rocky films are the worst choreographed fight scenes It's basically, particularly the first one, it's I punch you, you punch me. There's no blocking, there's no strategy. So why is Rocky such an incredible movie, and why does it move me to tears at the end? And why is that fight totally compelling? Because the fight is about something else, which is it's about Rocky's character, his guts, his determination, his staying in there. And because that's the story being told, not the fighting, that's why it's a moving movie. And it's exactly what you're saying, Jeff. It's like, I mean, I love the great action sequences and choreography and all that stuff. That's never going to be why I'm here. You know, it's always going to be, what is the story? What is it about? What is getting me emotionally involved? And then if you can layer in the moral and ethical questions, well, you've got the secret sauce for a Steve Morris movie, because that's my thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's TJ.
I'm just here for the time travel, so.
Which is executed well. Rocky, by the way, I think is the best ending of it. That's my number one for best ending, just for exactly the reasons stated. The fight is about something else.
Yep.
It's a gorgeous film. Well, with Days Future Past, okay, so this is a complex movie to set up, but for our purposes, the two characters we're looking at, Xavier and Erik, are revealed in the past, with Charles Xavier in a withdrawn, self-medicating place. He is using serum that allows him to walk, but it suppresses his power. He has voices in his head. As we talked about last time, he apparently can connect with nearly everybody on the planet. And meanwhile, Erik has been imprisoned beneath the Pentagon. Long story short, in the movie, Logan Wolverine must find them both, break Erik out of prison, and convince Charles and Xavier to work together to stop an assassination that's going to alter the future. One of the great superhero scenes is them, breaking into the Pentagon to get Magneto out. But the real dialogue and the battle of ideas occurs afterwards, and we're going to jump to that scene. This one is not in German, so we can just play the audio here. But they begin by talking about Xavier's powers.
How did you lose them?
The treatment for my spine affects my DNA.
You sacrificed your powers so you could walk.
I sacrificed my powers so that I could sleep. What do you know about it?
I've lost my fair share.
Huh. Dry your eyes, Erik. Doesn't justify what you've done.
You've no idea what I've done.
Would love to pause for a minute here, and we can just talk through this scene. But both of them are exposing a little bit of vulnerability here, their own suffering. They're meeting each other in a space after some time. Anything we're saying here?
Tons. Because I think what's interesting in the first part of our discussion, it was really about what is the proper method to achieve the just goals that you believe that you have. And do the ends justify the means? And Xavier and Erik draw those lines in very, very different places, and we're having a discussion about that. This is a conflict between the personal and the communal to some degree. Is that what's happened is that Xavier, who was the shining knight, the person who had the whole vision, he believed completely that he knew what was right, and if he only did everything just the right way, then everybody was going to listen to him because his arguments were perfect and everything would be okay. And he is reckoning with the reality that that's not true. And that's never going to be true. And Erik, who's a person who dealt with trauma at his very young years and made active choices to fight against that thing, the privileged Charles Xavier, who thought he had it all figured out, has this real tragedy in his life. And it's both the breaking of his body and the breaking of his moral core and vision for the future have happened simultaneously. And he has got nothing, and he is making the choice to step out of the fight. And this is something we see all the time, which is, everything is treated today as an existential threat. And there are people, we have, of course, have the argument of do ends justify the means? That's going on. And then there are people who go, I don't want to participate. I need self-care. We just did a short on the Cinephiles where we were talking about the need to protect yourself versus the need to go out in the world. And this is a choice everybody has to make. And trauma amplifies that choice. And that's where Xavier is right now, is he has given up the fight in order to do what he thinks is protecting himself, when really it is actually him wallowing in his own trauma and hurting himself. Whereas Erik has taken his trauma and used it as violent fuel for violent revenge. So we have the two characters now dealing with trauma and taking very different paths and very different relationships to both the just good that they see, the communal relationships to everyone else, and is what they're doing going to heal their trauma?
This is in all of the films except for Logan, I think. This is the weakest we see Charles. Erik is operating from a place of not just strength, but almost like it's like they flipped, and Charles is in this low place, and Erik is actually almost in a moral high ground, because we learn later that he was in jail for trying to save Kennedy, not for actually trying to kill him. Like he doesn't see Erik in an equal way right now. Like there's so many of their interactions where it's like, hello, old friend. Like they are old friends who are on different sides of ideological spectrums. And here in this moment is Charles is not even treating him that way. It's like he's pouring his trauma out onto Erik, and Erik is in a position to actually stand against that. And I feel like their positions are so different than in any other point in the films.
Honestly, I'm not sure that Charles ever saw Erik as an equal friend, and I'm not sure Charles has ever seen anyone as an equal.
Sure.
I mean, that's like the real, and I think it's like he believes he's a superior person and believes that people should be incredibly compassionate and sensitive and kind and all that, and he's going to do that in a superior way. He's going to be the most compassionate, the most reaching out person, because he sees himself on some unconscious level as actually superior. I think that's one of the things that is the struggle of and of course he is superior. Like he's not wrong, but I think that arrogance is in there.
Yeah. And in this moment, his trauma is still all about him.
Yeah.
Love that. The thing I see here is adult loss versus childhood loss. This makes these two characters very different. Erik lost something a long time ago. Charles has never lost anything, and he just lost something severe, and he doesn't know how to grieve. He's never grieved. And the movement, the imagery of heroin use that's in this, very well done, I thought, in terms of losing yourself in some sort of drug, escapist drug, especially for a omniscient person. Like, how do you turn everything off? I find this a fantastic temptation for this character, and it's obviously something that he's going to struggle with. I would love to talk about heroism on this front. It seems like both these characters are invited to transcend their grief and trauma and become something more. And at this point in time, the future is open for them, correct? Magneto could become a hero in a heroic sense if he overcame his trauma and grief in a quote unquote like a healthy way. Am I wrong in thinking that?
Well, I think Magneto thinks he is a hero. It's his own worldview. He would have to shift worldviews to become a different kind of hero in order to become a hero. I mean, I think what's interesting with the heroin metaphor and addiction, to me, like my brain always goes back to Marcus Aurelius. Like Marcus Aurelius is like the most go-to dude for a quote. So much of what he's saying is that all you have to control is yourself. And so all Xavier has to do is, like all of his choices, whether or not to stay out or to come back in, Magneto's choices to attack or to heal, those are all the only thing they can control is actually themselves and their own actions. They cannot, like Charles believed that he could control the world somehow. Like he could actually, and Magneto believes he can form the world somehow. And neither of them actually can. And that is part of the tragedy,
That Stoic ideal, I think it transcends all sorts of philosophies. I want to say the Buddha likewise says something of that same effect, where it's something to the effect of he who overcomes himself overcomes the world. But you see that coming up over and over and over again. Plato says something similar. I'm deeply attracted to that idea, that if I just get my own crap in order, that everything else will probably go all right. But overcoming yourself is, I mean, here's stoicism. I mean, that is the battle. That's not an easy battle at all.
I mean, I don't think getting your shit together actually means everything's going to be okay. It might not be. I think that like the lesson I always take from it is that's all you can do. You only control. There is no controlling anything other than you. We barely can, whether or not we can control ourselves at all is a different question, but that's all you got. Those are the only tools available to you,
I suppose everything's going to be okay was not the right way to phrase that. More that I have done my part. My moral duty is taken care of. If I can knock things out in my own heart and bleed goodness into the world, then that's the best play I can make.
I think we have the potential it gives us the potential to remove one extra regret. That's what it gives us, is that like I had my closest friend in the world. He ended his friendship with me. It's 15 years ago. Still the most painful event in my life. It was very public. It was awful in every conceivable way. And he accused me a bunch of stuff, some of which, were true, and things, it's a 30-year friendship. You're going to have all sorts of things over the years that each of you are going to put in the bag of little insults and little slights and things. And some of his were correct. But there were some things he said about me, like, you did this intentionally to hurt me. And I knew inside I had done the thing, but I had never, ever done it. In fact, the whole meaning of the thing was an expression of love for this person. I won't go into the details because it's too sordid and complicated to explain, but what that gave me, it didn't lessen the pain and the regret of the loss of the friendship, but it did mean I didn't have to carry the regret of choices that I made. Like I went, look, that's not true. I know it's not true. It doesn't make everything okay, but it's one less regret that one has to carry around in your life.
I think we see that in this scene, not to just bridge the two, but Xavier is entirely wrong as he begins to tear into his friend. And so many of Xavier's own issues get placed on somebody who's not, is not necessarily responsible there. He says,
I know that you took the things that mean the most to me.
Well, maybe you should have fought harder for them.
If you want to fight, Erik, I will give you a fight!
Let him come.
You abandoned me! You took her away and you abandoned me!
Xavier grabs him and yells in his face. And it's filmed in such a way that Erik is towering over Charles. And he says, you've abandoned me. You took her away and you abandoned me. What do you see here in Xavier's outburst?
This is it. I mean, this is everything. It's like he constructed a world. He thought his world made sense. He had a purpose within that world. He had allies within that world. And then it's not just this person went away or that person. It shattered the idea of his reality. Yeah. And when, Mystique leaves him, his closest relationship, and Erik takes her, his other closest relationship, to follow a vision that is not the reality he wants, you've taken everything from me is right. That's it.
TT, you want to talk about idealists and frustration, and especially as it comes to their relationships?
Well, yes, but before that, I something that I'm thinking about with Charles' response here is that how interesting that without his powers, he has such a lack of perspective. Like in that moment, you abandoned me, you took her away. Like Erik told Charles what he was there for from the beginning. Like Erik was clear about his missions the whole time they were together. And so when Erik leaves, it's just an extension of Erik's being. Like that's the next logical step for Erik. And when Raven leaves, when Mystique leaves, that's her choice. But Charles, in this space of not having his superpowers and being stuck in this pit of woe is me, fully lacks the perspective of seeing that Raven made a choice, that she chose to leave, that the things that happened to him, it's not just that Erik left, it's like other people are doing something different than you, than what you thought they were going to do. And Like Charles sees that as a slight against him. Like, you did this to me. And it's very interesting just seeing Charles in this low space.
Exactly. I think those are great points. And I think the thing that makes this scene really good, in addition to the fact that it's well written and you have fantastic actors playing it out, is that we can relate to it. Is that I think that it's like what I was saying about Rocky, is that I have never fought for the World Heavyweight Championship, but I have been faced with a task where I had to just keep going and not quit and gut it out in one way or another, and all humans have. And so that struggle that we all have is symbolized by that fight scene. All of us have felt abandoned at one time or another. I just literally just told a story about me feeling exactly that way, you know? And so first of all, we can really relate to it. And it also, I think it relates to, there's a feeling when you are part of a group that you know which way to go, because the group is going that way. Like if you're in the, you know, I'm a Cal fan, lifelong Cal fan, gone to Cal football games. When I was at Cal and in the rooting section with all the students, and we had our little cards that we did together, and we said our cheers together, and you didn't sit down for the whole game, and you jumped up and down during kickoffs and all these other things, you were part of something and you knew what you were supposed to do. When you're alone, you got to figure all that stuff out by yourself. And so it's when you say you abandoned me, it's the whole world falls apart, you know? Like and this is the thing too, is recognizing, which I think, TJ, your point about him not having his powers is so key, is that the vast majority of times that people hurt you, they probably weren't trying to hurt you. They were just doing whatever they were doing, and you got in the way. It's so rarely directed at you. But most people feel like, oh, they said that to cut me down. They said that they purposefully didn't invite me to the whatever, because that's how it feels. Charles could read everyone's minds. He knew why everybody was doing everything. And he knew absolutely the thing that I am saying is true. This isn't about you. This is about them. And now he doesn't. And now everything is, you know, Mystique didn't abandon Charles. She went with Erik. Right. Those are not the same thing. She looked at what Charles's plan was, and she said, that is not what I believe. And she went where someone did believe what she believed.
To build on that, what I see here is something that you just don't see in Xavier's character very often, and that's focusing on himself. He's so others focused in nearly everything he does. But here it's, the things that I sacrificed or that I lost, and it's very much about him. I assume that that's part of him cutting off his powers, that he's not thinking about everybody else now. It's making him kind of focus on himself. But I do see the frustrated idealist here, that when one's ideals aren't hit or met, that is the natural, psychological move, is just to feel frustration at others who aren't keeping up or aren't moving in the same direction that is the right thing to do. What's interesting is Erik has a very different idea about the right thing. And notice where Charles is so self-focused, Erik is not self-focused. It's never about Erik. Erik's gonna raise a counter argument here.
Well, I also think the Erik's response to you took the things that meant the most to me is right in line with someone who thinks that they can actually order the cosmos according to how they see it. Is you should have fought harder for them. That line from Erik, I think, is an encapsulation of part of how Erik sees the world.
Yeah.
Is that if you lost things, it's because you didn't fight hard enough for them.
I think that's a great point, because literally he couldn't save his mom. You know. And rather than giving himself the grace of, you were a little kid who didn't know how to control your powers in a completely insane situation, you should forgive yourself. That's not Erik is.
That's not where he's
I
at.
failed.
Yeah.
Therefore, the only solution is to continually fight harder in the way I failed to do as a child.
Yep.
Does that ever happen? You look back at your choices as a child and blame yourself for what resulted when you clearly didn't have the power?
Yes.
change those effects? Is that a
It
thing?
may happen to other people. It doesn't happen to me.
There are so many things. There are moments in my life that are indelibly etched, and any time I want to feel shitty, I can go back and revisit them, and they never go away. And the fact that I was 9 years old for one of them, and I'm not kidding, I'm thinking about it right now and feeling shitty, does not make me feel any less shitty.
Right. Yeah.
Worth naming that those memories have power, and if one was as powerful as Erik, and having watched his mom die when he knows he could have slaughtered everyone in that room, we brought up Spider-Man last time, and a lot of the motives behind some of the characters we love most in these superhero films kind of come out of that space. I didn't use my powers when I should have.
Yep. I mean,
Clark Kent,
Batman.
same story. Anyway.
Batman's a little kid when his parents get killed, you know?
Yep.
There it is. Well, Erik doesn't speak about himself at all. It's about us for Erik, and us in the small sense. He starts listing off those who have been casualties.
Angel. Azazel. Emma. Banshee. Mutant brothers and sisters, all dead.
Countless others experimented on, butchered.
Erik,
Where were you, Charles? We were supposed to protect them. Where were you when your own people needed you? Hiding. You and Hank, pretending to be something you're not.
Erik,
You abandoned us all.
I want to note something just for the sake of the conversation, that what I see here is betrayal. What I see here is a lack of authenticity, that you are not embracing your authentic identity. And it's the case that you weren't rising up with your strength to protect. The only reason I'm naming these things is when we get into Enneagram and typing, those are core attributes of a character like Erik's, and just worth naming here. So, but what do you all see in Erik's response?
Yeah. We were supposed to protect them.
Yeah.
Just that's like, that is the failure of the 8, is we were supposed to protect them and we didn't. Now they're dead and it's our fault.
Setting aside Enneagram language, what do you see in Erik's response, Steve?
It's exactly that. It is. What's interesting to me is I'm trying to think of how to say this without being a ridiculous digression. But I remember reading The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins, and talking, and the basic evolutionary idea is that the purpose of this gene is to reproduce itself, and we have traits, both psychological and physical, that allow that gene to get reproduced. And one of the things that he talks about is how that expands into familial links. So you are more likely to, and he does some math. I actually don't really agree with some of these Richard Dawkins points, but they're interesting to think about, which is that the degree to which you want to protect someone is the degree to which they share your genealogy. So that a twin brother is exactly your genes. And so you have strong protective things, father, daughter, parents, children. As you get out to cousins and familial links, they get less strong. But then there's what happens is our psychology wants to reproduce that, so that the idea is that we naturally create in-groups and out-groups. So in the case of mutants, they do genetically, they are an out-group that is linked. But we do the same stuff all the time. And we go in ways that, there's constantly things of, how should you behave as a black man or a black woman? What should the Latinos vote for? They are part of an in-group, which must be protecting the in-group. So on the one hand, we have immigration, where the in-group is, well, you are part of the Latino population that is being targeted because many undocumented immigrants are Latino. But that idea, and therefore to not support this, is to betray your kind, which is what this scene is about. And I think that is a true fallacy, because what it does is it turns us from individuals into members of the group which are required to be the same. You know, now on the other hand, these are our friends, and Charles has retreated from the world and could have helped make things better and didn't, is a totally fair accusation on Eric's part. It's the groupthink mentality that I think relates very much to our world that I also, it's, you know what it is? When you're part of that group, like I was part of that rooting section, it feels awesome. And groups are dangerous things because that group power can be used for good or for evil. It can be used for anything. It can be used to have people go out and bring water to thirsty people and feed the hungry, and it can be used as a mob to go in and kill a bunch of people. Same system works the same way, and that's why I find Eric's framing of this dangerous, even though I find Charles' retreat into himself also an abdication of his responsibility.
It returns us to that us versus them, the tribe versus our common shared humanity posture. This is a very modern way of coming to the world. The medieval world divides along religions. The ancient world divides along tribes and who has the stronger king. The modern world, and why it's pitched as enlightenment, ends up elevating the mind and our shared human dignity and our shared human rights, and those transcend any other boundary that we may create. We brought this up last time, but that's one of the things that's falling apart right now, is that we're losing the elevation of those perspective systems that unite us across humanity, and we're re-elevating things from the past that do a great job dividing us. I think this is a fantastic critique of, Erik, if you go down this path, this is a losing path.
Well, can I ask a question? Because I literally do not know the answer to this question. If Erik was going to lay out winning, what does it look like? What is the relationship to humans if he's completely successful? Is it that humans are all second-class citizens and servants to their superior mutants? Or is it a Holocaust? Does he want to kill every single human on Earth? Because I don't think they articulate that. But I actually can't see any direction that Magneto is going to go that doesn't lead to one of those two things that could be labeled success. There is no equal living with humans in his vision. That seems pretty clear. So what is it? What is he trying to do?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think it's annihilation. Isn't it the case in X2? He starts using Cerebro to seek to eliminate all human beings, yeah?
I think they shy away. I can't remember. I haven't seen X2 in a while, but I feel like they shy away. Because the thing is, once you say that, then you're not only you fucking Hitler, but you are actually being the person who killed your mom. Because you know what? This is a great question. I'm glad something just popped in my head. Was Eric's mom a mutant?
Ooh. Unknown.
And certainly we know most of those people. What makes him a powerful character, and I think Bryan Singer, for whatever else we might say about him, does a beautiful job filming this in the first X-Men movie. That opening sequence in the Holocaust is unbelievably powerful. And
It's true.
You lock in because you are seeing the cruel and horrible death of all these innocent people, and we link Erik to that tragedy. But if that's actually what his plan is, then we should have zero sympathy for this guy whatsoever.
Yeah, go ahead. TJ.
I think that part of what they're doing, and this may be credit to Fassbender for never really showing us, but I feel like part of the story that they're telling with Magneto is that he doesn't know what the end goal actually is, and he doesn't recognize that you're right. He does not recognize that the path that he's on leads him to being Hitler. Like he can't see that because he's still wrapped up in his own trauma. But also he's desperate to just protect his brothers and sisters, and he doesn't see the path that he's on leads him to there's only one way that ends.
I mean, cognitive dissonance. Isn't it an amazing thing? I mean,
Right.
I mean, it's incredible what it can do to a person. Is that you could have, and I find this to be a totally believable character, scarred by the trauma of watching thousands of innocent people killed brutally, and so desperate for that never to happen again that he is willing to round up thousands of innocent people and kill them.
Yeah. Over and over and over. Like that's a big plot point in several of these movies, is that Magneto wants to kill everyone.
There is something about, you'll have to remind me of the quote, but it's becoming the evil that you oppose. You know, there's a fantastic scene, I'm sure you've seen it, in the recent Andor series, in which one of the heroes is bemoaning, like really going off on how he is forced to use the weapons of his enemies and how they have just massacred his own sense of self and humanity. And that's in essence, I talked about eugenics last time with Erik, but like, it's just obvious that the people who are embracing eugenics, the Nazis, and doing so to kill his family and do damage to him, he's picking up their tools. I think his target would be elimination. I don't think he needs anything from human beings, so why enslave them? And I think he thinks that they're at their core zombies who are just going to hunt him every chance they get. So why not simply crush them like a mouse?
Kind of makes you wonder why Charlie's even friends with this guy.
Does Charles see something in that? Does Charles have a temptation there?
I think Charles has the rose-colored glasses that want to see the good in everybody.
Yep.
And also, I think part of why this is such a roller coaster with Magneto throughout these films, like that's the general idea, and why if Kevin Bacon had not murdered his parents, if Kevin Bacon hadn't murdered his mom,
Kevin Bacon, wacky Kevin Bacon killed his parents.
If that hadn't happened, he might have joined Shaw, right?
Yeah.
If Shaw had not killed his mother, he might have joined Shaw, and we would have had to see him figure out that Shaw was actually the bad guy. Yeah. That is exactly what happens in Apocalypse. It's this thing that Erik keeps getting stuck on his own trauma, and he has to be pulled back from full-on eugenics. And I think Charles sees that he can be pulled back.
I relate to Charles a great deal in this film, really in the series. And as I said, with this horrible breakup with this friend, I kept trying to heal things. I spent a lot of time, writing, hey, let's get together. I'm really sorry about this. Our friendship's important. We're hurting, because it was very public and we have a huge mutual group of friends, and it was hurting everybody. I was like, it's hurting your relationships with these people. It's hurting my relationships. Let's try to make this better. It took me well over a year to realize, he didn't want to make it better. Mm-hmm. That always looking for the good in people. It's the opposite side of they're not really doing this to you. It's not about you. Everybody has their reasons. Sometimes it is about you. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they are trying to hurt you. And what I think, and the choice that I made after, and I've thought about it a lot since, is I would rather continue to go around in the world more open-hearted, knowing that I'm going to get hurt sometimes, than close off that part of my heart and stop trusting people, But it has resulted in me getting hurt, Yeah.
And some people don't want to deal with that pain, so they choose not to be open to it.
I'm going to tease part of Charles' solution, which we haven't gotten to yet, but he is going to separate from the humans and draw some boundaries and say, this is my space, and if you cross over this space, that will be blood on your head. If you ever come to my school, things will go badly for you. I'll be curious to hear what we think about Charles in those scenes, because he says it a couple of times. Last word, just because it's important. Wolverine speaks up after this spat.
So you were always an asshole.
I take it we're best buddies in the future.
We spent a lot of years trying to bring you down, bub.
How's that work out for you?
I love that Erik doesn't know the future, but he knows the future.
Yeah.
And Wolverine says,
You're like me. You're a survivor.
I think that he's correct. And I would love to hear what that says about Erik, if anything, the idea that he's a survivor. Does that build anything for us here?
Here's my weird thought. You know how I said that most of the time it's not about you and people aren't trying to attack you and all that? I think that's totally true. Mm-hmm. Wolverine lives in a world where the opposite is true. If it's, in our real world, 80% of the time it's not about you and 20% of the time it is about you. That's totally non-statistical. I just made up a number. but Wolverine's world, 80% of the time people are trying to kill him. And what that means is I think the right way to go through life is, forgiveness, openness, acceptance, not jumping to level 11 of violence at the pot, not attacking right away, but always trying to heal. If Wolverine had lived that way, he'd be dead. He's a survivor, and so what's funny is because we watch movies where life and death is happening all the time. And that proves the point of why Wolverine has to live the way that he lives, because we see that he would be dead if he didn't do that thing that was absolutely necessary to survive. If he didn't move outside the rules, if he wasn't tougher and crueler and harder than everybody else, which is a great lesson if you live in a movie. And it's a shitty lesson if you actually live in our lives where, that this is not... But what's so terrible about our world today is social media is selling us every day that it is the 80-20, everyone's trying to get you all the time. And so now we're thinking more and more, I got to be more like Wolverine and Magneto because I need to be a survivor.
I also love that line because I think that at this point in his life, Wolverine knows that is not a compliment. It's just a statement of fact.
Good point.
I don't think Erik knows that yet. Like in this statement, it's
it's not his self-understood identity.
Right.
Yeah.
He thinks that, and he thinks that survival is the goal, right? Like this is the thing, is like, we will survive. And here's this 200-year-old man who's being projected back from a 50-year future where everyone is dead, and he's saying, like without saying it, he's saying, it's not always good to be a survivor. That is not the number one goal.
Well, we've been asking lots of questions about what's in Erik's heart, and it's going to come out at the very end of the movie. Just skipping forward, lots of things happen. But the tension on surrounds what is Erik going to do given all of this information, and it seems to move him. And this is the scene where he has he's lifted RFK Stadium and placed it over the White House. He's brought out the president. He is filming himself for the world to see. This is like mutants are now being unveiled to everyone, showing the world their powers and their threat. And Erik is all about it because Erik does want to have a war. But the speech goes this way.
You built these weapons to destroy us. Why? Because you are afraid of our gifts. Because we are different. Humanity has always feared that which is different. Well, I'm here to tell you, to tell the world, you're right to fear us. We are the future. We are the ones who will inherit this earth. And anyone who stands in our way will suffer the same fate as these men you see before you.
Let me pause halfway through. Anything that you see there with the first half of this speech?
Just the worst possible thing anybody could ever possibly say. I mean, I know we talked about it a bit in the first part. I'm not a fan of many elements of American foreign policy over the last 100 and something years.
Go there. Yeah.
But like the idea that you can scare or dominate someone into being what you want them to be, it always has the opposite effect. Is that it's like there's a, unfortunately, because we're literally in the midst of war with Iran right now, which is real bad, in my opinion. There's a reason that Iranians started calling the United States the Great Satan. And you don't get a peaceful relationship with anybody by reinforcing the negative things they already thought about you. Xavier coming out and saying you're right to be afraid of us and you're going to suffer the same fate as these guys means it's open season on mutants. You have made there's absolutely no reason. Just as I think, again, because you said it was okay for me to get political, not only is there now no reason for Iran not to try to develop a nuclear weapon, there is damn good reason for every single other country in the world to start developing them. Because if you go in and destroy Iraq because you say they're developing a nuclear weapon and they're not, which they weren't, well, then everybody should develop one. And so, that's not, Magneto's not good at making friends. What he is doing right now is guaranteeing war. That is what, and this is the thing. And again, I'm obviously a lefty. There are things that I see lefty people say that sound a lot like Magneto. Nobody gets called a racist and suddenly goes, oh, I should think about my life. That's not what happens. What happens is they immediately have a cognitive conflict where they go, I am not a racist. Therefore, this person is crazy. That's what happens. And then that further entrenches them in the position that you wanted to get them out of.
Yep.
Is that the only, and so everything that Magneto is doing here, unless your whole plan is just to kill everybody. And if your whole plan really is to kill everybody, which I think we agree that it is, why make a speech? No point in making speeches.
Correct.
Just start killing people. Making the speech will galvanize the response and have them attack you. Much easier to kill them without the speech. The only reason to make speeches is to persuade someone of something. That's why we speak, is to communicate something. Well, and maybe he's trying to persuade all the other mutants, or maybe he's doing, Jeff, you mentioned Andor before,
That's what it
is that in Andor, we have the staged violence that's going to rally people to a cause.
Yep.
Maybe he wants the humans to attack him so that he can rally more mutants to his cause because in the end, he wants war. Which is, again, I'll go back to my first statement, worst possible things you could say ever.
Yeah. He very easily could have just destroyed the Sentinels, right?
Yeah.
Or just moved them, or done something to where they were out of the game. And instead, he took them over. He made them to where they were his own weapons. And he's choosing the path of violence here. And back to the different camps that we were talking about earlier, he is very clearly saying to all of non-mutant humanity, we're coming for you, and to all of mutants, let's fight. This is a rally cry for him.
Well, it's more than that, because of his speech, he's saying to all those mutants, now all the humans are coming for you. You have no choice but to join
You're
my
welcome.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is starting the conflict there. That's what I see. This is all provocation. He's trying to get the humans to rise up as well. And I feel like I talked too much about biblical imagery last time, but there is the thing about what we're seeing in Iran right now is just how often Christianity is being co-opted by truly ignorant and violent men, and the language of Christianity being used to justify killing people who you've never met, never will meet, and just how ugly that is. But that's here. We're the ones who will inherit the earth is stolen from the Sermon on the Mount.
I remember in school people talking about the Crusades or the Inquisition or various Christian nastiness that has happened over the years. And it was the class always ended with, but we would have evolved so much since then. And we would never do that now because we understand the contradictions in the idea of, torturing someone to death in the name of someone who was tortured to death. That's a weird thing to do. We're never going to escape those contradictions. Humans will always find a way to not listen to what Jesus actually said. I'm an atheist, but I'm a big Jesus fan because he said great stuff. But the fact that you could look at that and go, Jesus wants us to kill people is insane. But that's again, cognitive dissonance works real well.
Yep.
It's shocking to me. Like in other spaces, I debate people in that world all the time, and it's shocking to me how somebody could come to said conclusions. I just don't get it. At some points, you just begin mocking people. I don't know what else to say there. I've hit my frustration level.
Well,
you can hear me.
That's why I get Charles Xavier wanted to disconnect. He thought there was a way to persuade, and he thought there was a way to make this work, and for everybody, because the reality of the planet Earth is if we would just get over ourselves, our world could be great. We have everything we need. We have incredible technology, incredible resources. If we just stop being fucking stupid, we could live great lives. But we can't shut the fuck up, and we cannot actually prioritize the real importance things correctly. And put the stupid shit down lower and not worry so much about it. We don't do that well.
There's a great line in the recent Project Hail Mary. I don't know if you guys have seen this yet. But in essence, the whole movie is set up with the Earth is going to lose a quarter of its resources. And one of the primary scientists says a quarter of humanity is going to die, but we know it's going to be worse than that because we know the governments won't be able to work together.
Yep.
And it's just such a cutting throwaway line at one level, and it's just like, yep, you're exactly right.
We have very recent history to know that much of humanity is more concerned with whether or not I am personally comfortable than other people die.
Today was meant to be a display of your power. Instead, I give you a glimpse of the devastation my race can unleash upon yours. Let this be a warning to the world.
And to my mutant brothers and sisters out there, I say this: no more hiding, no more suffering.
You have lived in the shadows in shame and fear for too long. Come out. Join me. Fight together in a brotherhood of our kind. A new tomorrow that starts today.
You're exactly right. This is the worst possible speech that could be given at this point in time, given the stakes.
Well, and what it does, and that is not to say it's not rhetorically powerful. It is. And what he does, which is, a great technique, is to link a genuine ill to a action. So the genuine ill is no more hiding. You could be who you are. And that's right. There has been a crime committed against these people who have not been able to be their true self. That is something we talk about in the world, and then the next step is, and let's kill all these other people, is that if, because you have felt this trauma, it therefore enables you to do something that is wrong, which is something that we've seen all the time. The justification for whether it's looting or rioting or violence or this has been done to me, therefore I am now justified to do this to you. And it should, of course, be the opposite. The fact that you survived a Holocaust should be evidence that you should never do a Holocaust. But Erik goes, therefore, because of my trauma, I have rights that other people don't have to do evil because I am a victim.
And everyone else better agree with me about how to handle this as well. I think a lot about a gay kid living in a rural community. Maybe the best thing for him is to escape that rural community, not necessarily to just say, I'm gay and all of you can deal with it. It may not be safe for some of these mutants to come out of hiding. And they may not have powers that allow them to defend themselves or murder everyone in their small hometown so that they can live in freedom. And Erik is now imposing that vision onto all of those people that like it just may not be a good idea for them to stand up in the power that he's trying to offer them, because that's not how the world works.
Yep.
What I hear here is what's happened in recent politics, especially around, and I have a deep sympathy for this, being the father of two young men, that there's a real problem for men in our culture, and it got weaponized. The victim mentality got pitched, and a large number of people got drawn into, what was it? It's not resentment and victimhood. What's the people are voting based on?
Grievance.
That's the word I was looking for. And that's what I see here. It's like, what it's like to hide, what it's like to suffer. Nobody can see you. Nobody knows your shame and your fear and what you're struggling with. Join me. There's a good Darth Vader line. And
Together we'll rule the galaxy.
And what we're going to do is fight.
Yeah.
Because nobody has seen you, and as such, they must be destroyed. It's not, hey, we need to think and solve these problems together. As Steve, I think, is rightly saying, look, these are problems and we should solve them. We should elevate the problems. We should dialogue through them. This is how civilization works. Yeah. And if you're not willing to do that, your civilization is going to crumble.
Well,
anyway.
one of the things that happens, and I know we're moving very slowly through this again, but I think that happens in groupthink, and that power of being in the group and wanting to belong in the group, and you need a group in order to affect political change. You can't do it on your own. But one of the problems is that it tends to frame things, and we normally do this. My problems are real. Your problems, since you oppose me, must be fake.
Yeah.
And that's not true. Usually everybody has problems. So it's like if you go, hey, we got to raise the minimum wage. And I personally think we definitely do need to raise the minimum wage. And a small business owner goes, I don't think I can make payroll.
Right.
Well, his problems are real. Like, I can't just go like, you're evil because you're fighting against this thing that I strongly believe we have to do, which is raise the minimum wage. It's like, what it should be is, shit, I got to solve his problem too. We need to solve both the problems. I want to save the planet. Well, saving the planet's going to raise costs. Oh, well, shit, those are complicated problems. And the thing too is we're actually, the other thing to acknowledge, we're never going to solve all these problems. What we have to do, because what people, it's always having the perfect be the enemy of the good. I want to win and get everything I want. Yep. And it's when it really should be, I would like all of us to win and get some of what we want. And all of us are going to have to make some sacrifices too. But that's going to solve the most problems for the most people.
Yeah.
Just in case you think we're just criticizing the right, the left is bailing on exactly that front. Terribly. Movie ends with Mystique chooses not to kill a scientist. I suppose Mystique chooses not to go the way of violence, and this allows the future to move forward.
And puts herself in the place of danger as well. Like there's a self-sacrificial element to what she does. Like she steps out into... She poses as Nixon and steps out into the place of danger.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll tell you, it's funny. I never watched. I started to watch Apocalypse and I never got through it because I didn't really like it and I never tried again. So I don't really know all this. One of the, it's not a flaw in the movie, but it's a flaw in the movie in terms of discussing it philosophically, which is that what this hinges on is that there was one specific event with one specific dude that made all of this go to hell. Is that it's him getting a hold of Mystique's blood. And so what they're really doing is not going back in time for a different philosophical stance or a different approach between Erik and Charles. We're going back in time to stop this particular event from happening.
Right.
And so it's not actually really engaging in whether or not Erik was right or wrong. It just happened to be wrong because it led to an event that screwed everything up.
That's fair. Yeah, it's a good call.
Is more about Mystique than it is about Erik, but like the thing to change then is whether or not Mystique becomes a killer. And even then, like even in this, she doesn't kill Erik, which she could have.
Except there's nothing in it about she could have killed 87 other people.
Right.
It's just about not killing this one guy.
Right. Yep.
It's not really about the moral question at all on a fundamental level.
It's just that one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the process, post-speech, Magneto loses his helmet. I think this is how they transition so severely into Apocalypse. I'm going to just elevate some stuff because some of the scenes in Apocalypse do have things we're saying, but Erik goes into hiding after this. He doesn't have his helmet, so he's not protected from Charles. And he takes the name Heinrich, and he's working in a steel factory, and he's speaking Polish, and he's kind of head down doing his thing, starts a life, and it looks, I think it's the case that he's married to a human being. So transition here, and he has a daughter, and he, his human wife has chosen him. He has chosen her. Perhaps this is a step for Erik. Perhaps he has actually embraced a little bit of Charles' idealism. Maybe we just need to amalgamate. This will be our future. And of course, it all goes terribly wrong. The humans continue to hunt mutants. They end up killing his wife. They end up killing his kid. And he has fresh trauma. And there seems to be a lesson here that even when you try and integrate, humanity by their nature is going to seek to destroy you and all that you care about. I think that's how they're setting up Apocalypse with the nod. This may not be a very good film, and Dark Phoenix may be even worse.
I've never seen Dark Phoenix.
I rewatched Apocalypse fully in the last week. It's not as bad as it's not as bad as I felt like it was when I watched it initially. It's still not great. And the character arcs that they try to put us through are And Dark Phoenix is really hard to watch. I'm trying, and it's really hard to watch.
The end of Apocalypse is the identical end to the first X-Men.
Yeah.
In one scene, the only conversation that takes place in the movie between Xavier and Magneto is mental. It's through telepathy.
Charles.
Hello, old friend. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I feel your pain. And your loss.
You think because you can see into my head, you know how it feels. You're looking in the wrong place, Charles.
What happened to them? It was terribly wrong. But come back to us. I can help you.
Help me?
Think of your wife, think of your daughter. What would they have wanted?
I would have wanted to live. I tried you away, Charles. I tried to be like them. Live like them. But it always ends the same way. They took everything away from me. Now, we'll take everything from them.
I'm not sure what to do with that.
Yeah, there's one word I would argue with, and that is they.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there you
go. We want to believe, and it's so tempting, and it's so hard. And even though I fundamentally disagree with it, I continually put people into groups of us and them too. Mm-hmm. You can't help it. It's part of the human condition. But there is no them. There isn't a them. There are a bunch of individuals. And yes, those individuals might work together. And yes, they might, if people group together in the I hate pizza group, and their job is to outlaw pizza, we can make decent statements about the whole group's feelings about pizza. That's it. Other than that, there are a bunch of individuals. You know, like there was all this, it's slightly off topic, but there was all this conversation leading up to and after the Oscars where people, and I heard pundits say this all the time, what is the Academy trying to do? What are they saying with this thing? And it's like, it's an election. A bunch of people voted. They are not saying anything.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, one of the things that always bugs me is that we don't know what the voting is, which is why on our Cinephiles Awards, we always show like what the percentages of what wins, because it could be that one battle after another beats Sinners by one vote. Like we don't know. So like there is no they. They did not do this. It's like I had a conversation with a friend. And he totally apologized this. He knew it was a slip of the tongue when we were talking about Israel and Palestine. And at one point, because I'm Jewish, he said, well, you're doing this. And I'm like, whoa. I'm not doing anything. I live in the United States. I didn't vote for that government. Just because I'm Jewish, I am not part of them. And we have to figure out how to get rid of that word they when it does not apply. You know, and in particular, because when you start grouping people in with each other, it pisses other people off, and then people tend to group that way. Well, that is the opposite of what we want. I don't want there to be a they. They doesn't make sense.
There you go, friends. Steve Morris thinks that your pronouns are the problem.
Yes, I'm anti-pronoun.
I fully concur, and not to push too hard into this, but like I used to work in ministry. It's very easy to demonize in our present culture, and I would even want to demonize a lot of people who have the job that I used to have. Everything that I did in that job, I stand with my chest held high. I fought for the queer community. I fought for people who are non-documented workers, suffered for justice issues. And when people talk about Christian clergy with that sort of terminology that just grabs all of us and says, well, of course they are the problems. It's like, fuck you. I suffered way more than you ever have for the people that you care about most.
Well, and you wouldn't say, you might see a particular minister and you go, oh man, I do not like that guy. But you wouldn't go,
correct,
I don't like Christian ministers. That's a ridiculous statement. It's like, and I see this all the time where I'll see, and again, I see this on the left, is a thing will happen and then it'll say, oh, and I remember there was some horrible mass shooting dude, and I don't remember what the circumstances were. And as it happens, information is coming out in drips and drabs and it's not complete. And somewhere it comes out, I see someone post something, a friend of mine, like, oh, they went to a Christian camp. And my friend posted like, oh, there it is. Christian, and he's describing they went to the survivalist, fundamentalist training in military thing wearing camo. That's what was in his head. So I went and actually read the article, and it's like there was the archery range and there was arts and crafts. He went to camp. He didn't go, it's like it was camp. But that word Christian triggered a whole bunch of people on the left to turn this individual into a they and associate it with a group and that they saw in a certain particular way. As opposed to like, people are people, we don't know. It's very hard it's not the group, it's the person, Yeah.
I think that's wise.
To me, this is an entirely different direction of thought. But to me, part of what this story represents with Erik, like, we see Erik making decisions in different ways and like being in different positions of strength, or we could say stress, or all the things. And this is part of like one of the lowest points that we see him in all of the stories about him. And something that's really interesting here to me is like when we see him at the height of his power and he's doing well, like part of what he's doing is trying to protect people, right? And here he falls into a much more nihilistic place. Like so often when he's making his big speeches and like the points that he's trying to make is about mutant brothers and sisters coming together and protecting our own. And here it's entirely about destroying everything else.
Yep.
And that switch for him is much more nihilistic. Like, they took everything from me, and I'm going to take everything from them now.
Yeah, when your primary value is power, the only possible landing point when it comes to meaning is going to be the world doesn't have meaning. It's whoever has the most power wins. Mm-hmm. So this is, like, if you read Nietzsche's philosophy at its whole, that's in essence where he lands.
Yeah,
and that's exactly right.
And I really appreciate showing him in these different spaces where, instead of focusing on community, protecting other people, doing, like, you could argue that a lot of Magneto's decisions are about the Brotherhood, right? This is not at all about that. This is about taking everything away. This is about destroying things.
Yep. We're going to talk a little bit about Magneto's relationships to mutants, because it also goes sideways in some of the future films. But I want to hit the last scene in Apocalypse parallels the last scene in X1.
The world's already begun rebuilding its arsenals. It's human nature, Charles.
I still have hope.
Oh, yes.
Hope. I was right about Raven. I was even right about you. What about the rest of the world? Doesn't it ever wake you up in the middle of the night? The feeling that one day they'll come for you and your children. It does indeed. What do you do when you wake up to that? I feel a great swell of pity for the poor soul that comes to my school looking for trouble. You're sure I can't convince you to stay? You're psychic, Charles.
You can convince me to do anything. Goodbye, old friend. Good luck, Professor.
I like the Xavier going, I pity anyone who comes and attacks the school, because what I actually think, is seeking peace but being prepared for it not happening that's wisdom. That's in the middle. You know what I mean? A little bit more reasonable of a philosophy.
I also think that like where we see Erik so often being very concerned about power. Who has the power? Where's the power? What's this? Part of my take, and I'll acknowledge that I don't think this was written in a way that showcases this. I might be reading between the lines a bit, or even imagining between the lines. But I feel like part of this is representing that Charles is not concerned about power, and part of that is from his position of privilege, right? Like his statement is not about like we will protect ourselves. It's more like I pity the fool that goes looking for trouble in a place where trouble is going to overtake them. Like it's like here is still to me Erik concerned about power and Charles concerned about community.
I find this a deeply problematic answer from Charles, because what he's really saying is I have enough power to repel those people. You don't. If you were more powerful, your mom would be alive. If you were more powerful, your wife would be alive. If you were more powerful, your kid would be alive.
Yeah.
What we see in the next film, in Dark Phoenix, is that Magneto builds Genosha. It doesn't work because he's not powerful enough to keep the mutants, the human beings, out again. I think that the image of privilege is spot on. Mm-hmm. That Charles just is privileged, and his answers are not good enough here.
Yeah, I pity the fool who comes around and does the exact same thing that happened earlier in this movie.
Yeah.
By the way, I can't, now that you've said I pity the fool.
Yeah,
now
sorry.
No, it's awesome because now I am picturing Mr. T in a wheelchair going into Cerebro. It's a whole other vibe.
Dangly earring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have the Eddie Murphy monologue in my head from the beginning of Delirious, and this is all going to go sideways here in a second. The best scene, I think, between these two comes at the very beginning of X-Men. I just think it's gorgeously shot, and it just feels like it has so much heart. But this is, we're fast-forwarding to the future. And this, now we have, the two actors whose names aren't coming to me.
Two of the greatest actors in the world, Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
Sir. They're both sirs.
Sirs.
Please give them both their
sirs.
sirs.
Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
They are outside of a senator's hearing, and of course, the mutant problem is being dialogued about, and it's not going well for the mutants in terms of what the senators are saying. And Xavier, knowing that Magneto is in the back, finds him and has a conversation.
Erik. What are you doing here? Why do you ask questions to which you already know the answers?
Don't give up on them, Erik.
What would you have me do, Charles? I've heard these arguments before.
It was a long time ago. Mankind has evolved since then.
Yes, into us. You're sneaking around in here, Charles. Whatever are you looking for?
I'm looking for hope.
I will bring you hope, old friend. And I ask only one thing in return. Don't get in my way. We are the future, Charles, not them. They no longer matter.
This is where he's gone full villain at this point. We've arrived. He's no longer really Erik Lynch here. He's Magneto now at a different level. But does this add anything to our conversation, what we see starting now?
I'll tell you the line that rubs me the wrong way, both in terms of just writing, but also in terms of Charles, also in terms of science, is that was a long time ago. They've evolved since then.
Sure, yeah.
So first of all, just in terms of evolution, that's not, no, they haven't. Evolution doesn't happen fast. It happens really, really slow. The second thing is that it's just a stupid line. It really rubs me the wrong way, because the real lesson is that incorporates this idea that people are improving as opposed to people are people. Like one of the big things that we go like, oh my God, we look back at slavery or the Holocaust or any horribleness in history, and we go, how could people have done that? Those people must have been terrible people. Those Germans in Nazi Germany, they must be terrible people. Anyone who was involved in slavery, they must be terrible people. And that is the wrong lesson of history. The lesson is those are normal people. And most people in circumstances follow the world that they're in. Only extraordinary people stand up against the worldview of the society at large and fight against it. And that is why they're extraordinary people. And those people frequently get killed. So the idea that to say, oh, mankind has evolved since then, no, they're exactly the same. We are just as vulnerable to doing terrible things today as we were at any other time in history. Yes, humans have evolved very, very slowly. But if you took me and transported me as an infant back in time to any particular era, I would adopt the culture of that era. And maybe there's some chance I would be one of the extraordinary people and would stand against some terrible thing. But the odds are I won't, because most people don't. That's the lesson. And so the whole argument I think that Charles is trying to make to Magneto is 100% flawed. And what it really is, and this is why I say it's bad writing, is that that line is there to set Magneto up for the next line. Yes, into us. It is writing for a result rather than writing from your character's perspective as to what they would really say. It also, and this is the flaw, which I think I said at the beginning, of mapping the mutants-human conflict into all of our conflicts. Because in his case, there is actually a strong evolutionary difference where there isn't in all of our. We're all humans. All humans are humans. Right. So that one thing that Magneto can say, Charles has now set him up to say the one argument that does not relate to our situation, even though I say, as I said in the last episode, Magneto's view of evolution is just as incorrect as what Charles just said a second ago.
Mm-hmm. As soon as I hear that line, mankind has evolved since then, it's like, oh, a white person wrote that in the 90s. Like that's what this is. Like it is a perspective of privilege.
Yeah.
Again. Like this is Charles. I mean, yeah, it is bad writing, and it comes from a place of someone assuming that in the 90s, this is how I felt in the 90s, is that like the civil rights was back then, and we have work to do still, but it's fixed, right? Like things are fixed because we've moved past that, and that's like. Poor Erik, poor Magneto, lives with the full understanding that that's horseshit. Like it's just insane to believe that we've been fixed, that these problems have gone away. And you can only really say that from a place of ignorance and or privilege.
One of the things from our last conversation that really struck me and sat with me was something you brought up, Steve, about the fact that no men are trustworthy, and this is why you need laws. The elevation of law is because human beings have the tendencies that you're saying. Becoming more generous, kind, wise is not an evolutionary byproduct, and it certainly would take a long time if it was. This is actually arguably the beginning of the modern period. Isn't Descartes, it's Hobbes. And Hobbes comes to exactly this conclusion, and that's the starting point. Hobbes wants to say the condition of all human beings at the end of the day is everyone against everyone else. We are in a fundamental state of war.
I agree with and therefore we must have laws, and therefore we must find meaning, and therefore move. I agree with all those things. But I also think, humans are, neuroplasticity is an amazing thing, and humans are extremely flexible and can be raised to be doing things that are absolutely unbelievable to, I'm just thinking about you were a, 4-year-old girl, you were helping on the farm. That was just completely normal every day.
Fair.
I was just reading a book where it was one of the Patrick O'Brian books, and that they had 2 kids that had been enslaved. It doesn't matter what the whole thing is. And they rescued them, and they're on the boat, on the ship, because these are British naval novels. And the little girl goes, well, are there eggs to gather? She's like 6. What should I be doing? How should I be contributing to this world? These are things my son would never say to me, because he was not raised in a world where an expectation was that he would start laboring at 4 years old. But that was perfectly normal throughout almost all of human history, and seems entirely not normal today. That's why I just go we can be trained in all sorts of ways depending on how we're raised and what our society gives back in terms of feedback. Because what humans are really doing all the time is trying to succeed in the way that success is framed for them. Values are taught, all these things. And it's not that people aren't individuals and have their own ways. That's absolutely true. But where we start, what is it to be human, begins the process of how humans behave with each other,
Mm-hmm.
I love that you're bringing in the optimism here, because it actually relates much more to, I line up much more with, my favorite philosopher is Blaise Pascal, who says that the truth really is found on the poles when it comes to humanity, that we're both incredibly awful and we're both just magnificently made, and you have to find the truth in those 2 extremes. Hobbes is altogether pessimistic. But I think you're exactly right to say, look, if we're going to live together and have a future together across all the divides that we experience, there needs to be some optimism here in terms of our ability to change. I think that's one of the things the law does, or perhaps, I don't know if Xavier would go down this road. I don't know what Xavier's solution is at the end of the day, for how do we all get together across our divides. But that's where my mind went.
Part of it is I think, humans have a tremendous negative bias. So we are incredibly risk averse, and I forget if it's 7 times or 8 times. But we're that much more upset about losing $1, 7 times more upset about losing $1 than finding $1. It's something like that. We're incredibly risk adverse. There's the whole if it bleeds, it leads, which is the things that draws our attention is negatives far more powerfully than positives. And so then you get to Hobbes, who makes this observation, oh man, people are messed up and terrible. And it's a bit, well, that's what we see, because it's so like you're seeing the negative things far more powerfully than you see the positive ones. And you're more afraid of the negative things because we're risk averse for all these evolutionary reasons. And so so Hobbes has an easy time proving his point. Again, this is confirmation bias, because it's like you don't see the positive things as much and you don't value the positive things as much.
It may be proving the point, but it also is seeking to get his culture to shift hard away from monarchy, that's wrong. To shift away from a lawless state, a state that doesn't have governing principles. The pessimist has a point in saying, let me show you how badly things could go. Well, maybe that's it. Xavier seems to not embrace that side at all.
Yep.
And Erik's living entirely on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that is why Xavier's philosophy is also flawed.
Yeah.
And that's what wounded him so deeply when we talked about when he had, totally withdrawn. It's funny. Here's what, if I were to write this philosophy, my philosophy would be there isn't a right philosophy. I can't imagine that there's a right way to approach this where you can go, okay, I got it. Here's what you do. There isn't, because there's going to be small times, it's like my 20% thing I said before of like, sometimes people really are out to get you and you got to fight to the death. That's actually real. And humans can be inspired to do all sorts of horrible, awful things, and there will be no talking to them, because when someone has a worldview, an emotional stance, the most logical arguments in the world will not dissuade them from that. The only thing that will dissuade them is changes in worldview and changes in emotional stance. That's the story that lives in their mind, is the story that they're fighting on. Your logic isn't going to do a damn thing to change it. That's all totally true, which means that what we actually need is multiple philosophies and multiple approaches for multiple situations that are complex but hopefully always defaulting back to what I would say is the constructive and the positive.
This is going to end our second episode into the X-Men and the characters of Magneto and Professor X. We're going to pick this up next time for the final and third episode. So tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. That is DC and not Marvel. I just realized that. But if you want to see more of our stuff on the Enneagram, go to aroundthecircle.org. Follow us on Instagram. If you would like to see some of Steve's great work, again, I can't recommend highly enough his excellent Cinephiles podcast. Do check it out. Find a movie that you really enjoy. They've covered literally 200 or 300 movies. Just find one, jump in, well worth your time. And with that, may all good things be yours.